Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi and today we have our first team report from the Oceania International Championships and I am joined by two top players. First and foremost, I am joined by Kareem. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Audie. I really appreciate it. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well too. And for those who don't know you, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I started playing VGC in late 2016, and my notable results were mostly in the seniors division. I got top four at a Premier Challenge in 2017, and I won NAIC in 2019 in seniors. Um, so I mean, yeah, I mostly laid low during Dynamax because I was not a huge fan. Um, but now I'm back and it feels good to be back.
Yeah. And then of course our other guest is the top placing Australian at Oceania Internet. I'm joined by Alfredo. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I hope you're well. Thank you very much for having us on the podcast, on the
Yeah,
team.
again, well, thank you for coming on. And congrats on your incredible performance at OCSC. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm an Australian VGC player who started in way back in early 2014 as a junior. And I guess I kind of just started it because I liked Pokemon and my family, like all my cousins were into Pokemon. And then I guess I just started taking it more seriously as it went on. And then like my breakout year was 2017 in seniors where I finished top eight at OCIC as a 13, 12-year old. Can't remember, sorry. And then, yeah, after that, I kind of just continued the snowball. I won four ICs as a senior. And then in my master's career, I played my first master's regional or like special event, which was the Melbourne Esports Open that I won. Um, and then from there, like in 2019, pre-COVID, pre-Dynamax, well, Dynamax as well, it was OCIC 2020. I finished top 16 at LAIC, top four Brisbane, and then day two OCIC 2020. And then when COVID hit, I kind of was already in this period where I didn't really like the game, and I was kind of done with it. So then it was I kind of took a break for 2 years. I think I played a Players Cup, but I didn't do well. Yeah, now I kind of came back and I finished top eight at an international,
Yeah, I
which is
mean,
pretty cool. Yeah.
I'd call this more than kind of coming back. This is coming back with a vengeance. Uh,
Yeah, he's back like he never left. I'm telling
exactly. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people who took a break during Gen 8, during the pandemic, during the Dynamax era, have come back and really showing all these new kids how to play Pokemon again. Um,
you.
So, okay. So, with that, let's talk about the team that you used because you were not only the only Australian in top cut, I think you were one of the very few Psyspam teams in all of day
That
two.
was Yeah. I think I was one of two Psyspams, and the other Psyspam was Hard Trick Room and a fellow Australian. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me about why you chose to run this team.
Um, well, I kind of chose to run this team because Kareem and I, since I've come back really into like playing Pokemon hard, I've been building with Kareem kind of religiously over the past few months. And every time Kareem makes something, I kind of have all the faith. I just kind of liked how it played, that it was super, I guess, aggressive, but also not to the point where you're like, oh, I only have like two modes and then it's kind of over. Was like a lot of aggressive teams are like that. I either have one aggressive mode A or aggressive mode B. If I can't kind of win with that, it's kind of over. But with this one, you can lead so many different things and it's super like aggressive. For example, what you can lead bundle task into a lot of matchups. You can lead Floodmade bundle. You can lead Indeedee Armor Rouge, Indeedee task. Like there are so many different options for aggression straight off the bat, which is pretty fun. That's why I kind of chose it. Also, I don't know why, if it's kind of a superstition thing, I'm a lot better with offensive 50-50s than defensive ones, even though they're still the same 50-50 kind of thing. So, yeah, I guess it's just more comfortable to my playstyle.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Kareem, of course, it sounds like you were the one who was the mastermind behind this team. Do you want to talk about
Mhm.
how you put this team together?
Sure. So I believe I sent you an image that shows like the history of the team
Yep.
in my builder. So I think two or two and a half, two and a half, uh, too soon to Orlando. I was very worried because I was testing a lot and nothing was really clicking. And obviously I'm a university student, so I didn't really have all the time in the world. Um, so I was like, I'll just do what Maluka did at San Diego because in his team report he said that his team started from him recreating one of his teams from I believe a Players Cup. Uh, so I grabbed my NAIC team, my favorite team that I've ever used. Shout out Z for that one. Uh, and I tried to just classic desperate team building fashion, just like one to one mirror the Pokemon. And it's not really exact, but uh, I think it's accurate when people compare Xerneas to Fluttermane in that both are just like such insane offensive damage dealers that no other fairy type really compares uh, to them in their respective formats.
Yeah,
Um,
that's funny. I know we're recording this as Knoxville Regional is happening, and me and some of my team building friends were joking about how the new Zerndon is just Fluttermane, Torkoal, and Great Tusk. So it's funny that you also recreated a 2019 team.
yeah, it is. I turned my Xerneas Lunala into Xerneas Groudon almost. Um, but yeah, I that was kind of the angle I was tackling it from. I also knew that from the various things I was testing, I really enjoyed Bundle Tusk as a duo because they just pin down everything super well, including Roaring Moon, which is a big one for Psyspam to deal with, right? Because if you start Bundle Tusk and they start Roaring Moon, then they're like they are so prone to revealing their Terra instantly, uh, is to avoid ice or fighting damage or whatever it may be. So I started from there. I didn't really know what I wanted the sixth slot to do. At some point, it was T-Tar at first, but it just felt too slow, and I didn't really enjoy leaning into that Trick Room sort of mode. So then it was Bisharp for all of 30 minutes, because I thought maybe I want faster dark type damage. Um, and that obviously that did not pan out. Bisharp is not very good. Then I noticed, oh, maybe I want a wide guard user for moves like Snarl. But Garganackle was just clunky. And since I think the meta kind of corroborates this feeling that I had because Garganackle has not been doing nearly as well as it once was in earlier times. Then for a bit it was Amoonguss, which was a version that Alfredo and I really liked because it pins down opposing Dondozo super well. But the issue was that in a lot of games I would want Indeedee and Amoonguss, and it was a bit of a trap in that when you are bringing Indeedee and Amoonguss, you are doing almost no damage. Like all your damage has to be centered in your other two. So finally, I thought about what I expected to be common at Orlando, and this was during the uptick of the Iron Hands, Amoonguss, Arcanine sort of teams, which can be really annoying if they have a Dark Terra and just spam Snarl for the entire game. So originally, that's what Hydreigon was there for, and it was a very different set than the one that we ended up using. I'm kind of going in onto like the team specifics a bit much, but basically the six mon is really just there for whatever matchup you wanted to patch. For me, it was the Iron Hands Arcanine Amoonguss because I had a set with taunt as to shut down Amoonguss, and Alfredo tested and wanted the Hydreigon to accomplish something else, which I think he can elaborate on.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to do with the Hydreigon, which was a bit different from Kareem, was that I kind of wanted it to, I guess, be really good into Psyspam, which it already naturally is with the also with our cheeky Terra Psychic. Um, but also at the same time, I wanted it to have a positive matchup into Annihilate because it kind of gets awkward sometimes if they're like Annihilate, like Dondozo teams, where they can kind of break down your Psyspam lead with the Dondozo kind of stuff, and then have like Annihilate in the back, and then things kind of get awkward. But with this Hydreigon spread, I made it that it outspeeds like Max Jolly Annihilate by 1 point. So you can play like a Tailwind Psyspam mode, which is quite good into that like kind of Dondozo stuff because our Armourouge isn't what's it called? It's not quiet. It's just modest 31 speed EVs. So that means in Tailwind, we are at worst speed tying with max speed Jolly Dondozo with the +2 boost. So I guess that's why I like the Tailwind mode more than the Taunt. Also, the fact that I had Taunt on Tusk made it feel like having two Taunt mons might be a bit of overkill, but luckily for me, the Tailwind mode will help me out. Yeah.
Hmm. And so you talked about how that last slot kind of is a meta call almost. How did you feel like? Did you feel like the metagame at OCSE kind of matched your expectations, or do you get caught off guard a little bit at times?
I was expecting a lot more size spam. I'm not sure if that's just like, I guess, more of a personal thing or kind of being oblivious, like not playing the game that often. But I kind of felt online on ladder that there was lots of size spam, but that also could be a thing that it's ladder, and ladder doesn't really reflect very often. Like it kind of does reflect what is brought at tournaments, but a lot of the time people just use like XYZ ladder team to boost their elo, but then when they go in person, it's like they bring out the big guns kind of thing. Um, so I was expecting a lot more side spam, but I only ever played one side spam in my whole 14 rounds, which was very surprising for me. Um, yeah, but I guess I was like expecting, I guess, kind of controlled stuff. I wasn't expecting that much mouse. I was really surprised by the super supportive mouse with like Goldengo and stuff, which the team doesn't fare too bad into, but it's kind of like, I don't know, if your opponent calls you out, kind of take the loss, or if you call them out, it's kind of like a 50-50 matchup, but it's fine. I was very surprised by the amount of mouse and the lack of Psyspam. I don't know if it's that Psyspam did really bad at the start, but there was just a very big lack of Psyspam at the top tables, I felt.
Right. I mean, and again, we're recording this the weekend of Bochum and of Knoxville, so we're going to see if that changes. But I know it was really present in Orlando, so that's a pretty reasonable thing to assume. And I guess maybe there was just a lot of hate for it in the field, which makes it all that much more impressive that you did so well with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess on that note, let's talk about the Pokemon that you used and why you trained them the way that you did.
Mhm. So, starting with feeling you, the Fluttermane. First, as a quick aside, I want to say the Ice Spice nicknames are because my friend Rob was begging me to listen to Ice Spice. He's such a big Ice Spice fan. So, if you're watching this, please tag Rob on socials and ask him if you're feeling him or what or things of that nature. But um, the the Fluttermane is pretty standard. I feel that on any Psyspam team, you really, really need a lot of ways to break dark types because that's what's halting your momentum. So, for that, with that in mind, having Flutter and Tusk wasn't really overkill, and the Specs Flutter just made it obviously do a lot more damage. Moves are pretty standard. The fourth move was Icy Wind for a while, but uh, it honestly doesn't even matter. Alfredo, did you ever click Mystical Fire in tournament?
No, out of 14 rounds that I played, I never clicked Mystical Fire once. Probably if I were to go back, I would very likely change it to another move, either like Power Gem, Thunderbolt, or like even Trick. Even U-Turn would have been more useful. But,
I don't.
it kind of felt like it was a three move Pokemon for the whole tournament.
Alfredo, I do, as a quick aside, I don't think Fluttermane gets U-turn. That screenshot that you saw was a Zoroark clicking U-turn as Fluttermane.
I've been baited. It's so sad. I'm still rusty. I'm still rusty. Sorry, guys.
Um, but yeah, now Munch the Armarouge, the HP is just for to reduce life orb damage. A lot of Psyspams that I saw were dropping Protect on Armarouge, which is a change I don't agree with at all, because being able to preserve your damage dealer is such a huge deal uh, for a team like this, where you want to keep damage on the field, you want to keep moving your board along. So yeah, expand armor trick room, pretty standard. The Indeedee, Ice Spice the Indeedee is 252 HP, 252 defense bold, because if you have a Psychic Seed boost, you don't really need any extra SpDef. Uh, the IVs are like that because that was the only Trick Room Indeedee I could find. That mon is not very easy to come across. Um, the it's originally in testing we were Psychic, and then Alfredo and I felt that Gleam was just necessary so that if the opponent had a problematic dark type like the Roaring Moon or something, your Psyspam mode didn't become a a complete non-factor in the matchup, because Terra Fairy Gleam, it doesn't do any damage to pretty much anything except Roaring Moon, and that allows us to again force the Terras from that Pokemon, and that's a really big part of playing Psyspam in in Scarlet and Violet, in my opinion, is just forcing defensive Terras from the opponent so that you can pin them down with your other options. Quatch, the Great Tusk, I believe, is Alfredo. Do you wanna tell us where that nickname comes from?
Oh, that's my good friend from school. He gave me the Great Tusk. So it was like a shiny Great Tusk with a gourmet mark that he found when he was shiny hunting. And I asked him if I could use it for the tournament. And his condition was I had to nickname it after him. So I nicknamed it Qua. So every time it came out, it was Qua the Gourmet. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, shout out to Liam if you're watching this. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Headlong, CC Protect, pretty standard. We were adamant because we found that a lot of the time when we were playing Great Tusk, it was either next to a bundle clicking Icy Wind or under Trick Room. In fact, those were pretty much the only circumstances where it was present. So we we really just wanted it to do as much damage as possible. It's taunt on Great Tusk because when Alfredo and I were testing, one day he messaged me and he was like, "This guy just led Roaring Moon Amoonguss into me, and there was just nothing I could do." So we weren't really getting much out of knockoff, which was the original third slot in the original move there. So we thought that taunt would just be good to halt the progress of Amoonguss, and I believe it's also situationally useful against Dondozo, but locking down Amoonguss is really the big one. Um, God willing, the Iron Bundle. Uh, Pretty standard, not much to write home about. Uh, the I was Terra Ice at Orlando. Alfredo changed it to Terra Ghost for just a better matchup into like just fighting moves in general. Did that ever come up, Alfredo?
Yeah, it was more into fighting moves and also into like Tyranitar because if you had like Indeedee bundle positions, um, if it was like Tyranitar would be forced to Rock Slide, you can Terra Ghost and get into this position where it's like, oh yeah, okay, Bundle got off a move now because Bundle got off a move and didn't die. I can switch in something and win. You know what I mean? I guess from my limited experience of coming back and playing this game, I feel like the best terrors are the like defensive terrors because they can like swing the game from like zero, like unwinnable to like solved because you just have the correct defensive terror. It's also really good because, yeah, just if I can't play like a side spam mode, I can just stop priority as well. Also, it was kind of cheeky into playing into Perish teams like Wolfie Perish, I can Terra Ghost, and now all of a sudden I can switch. But yeah, it didn't really come into play because I never played Perish. Yeah, I just never felt like I was Terra icing. It's like when I was playing with the Terra Ice mode, it kind of felt like I was playing 6 Mons and then 5 Mons had a Terra type, and the bundle
Mm,
was never Terra Icing. But with Terra Ghost, at least I could have like some sort of like defensive threat, and also it's just really nice to have there because your opponent's like, ooh, I can fake out, but because now I have the Terra Ghost, now they're like kind of second guess themselves or like E speed calls as well. So it's just nice to, start forcing unnecessary 50-50s, which I kind of like as well because the realistically this game's comes down to statistics. If you can force more calls for your opponent than yourself, then you should win more
Mhm.
often than not, kind of thing.
Yeah. I feel like Terra Ice, a lot of times when I was using it at Orlando, was just like a little extra reach into Amoonguss, which I don't think your team has a problem damaging. And
Yeah.
then a little bit like to lock up end games where you don't want to click Hydro Pump, but you have your Terra available. And again, that just feels win more. So Terra Ghost, I guess, seeing a lot more play recently. Maybe because of your performance. I couldn't tell you what the other Terras on other Iron Bundles that did well were, but I've seen a lot more of it recently. Um, and I guess on that note, uh, I've had a lot of people complain to me about Hydro Pump over the last like month or so. How's your Hydro Pump luck at this tournament?
Well, it was nicknamed God Willing, so I never missed a hydro pump, so it was fine. Literally, every
Incredible.
time I clicked a hydro pump, it's like it's God's will that it will land, and it
yeah,
landed, so it was fine. I think
Alhamdulillah.
only time I missed a move, like I think I missed two icy wins the whole tournament.
Mm.
So one time I missed an icy wind to put myself in a favorable position, kind of thing, which was funny. So if I missed the icy wind, then I could play Trick Room mode with Armor Rouge, and I was like, oh, okay, this is fine. But the second time was against Yuya Tata game two, and if I land the icy wind, it's over. But it's fine because I got really lucky like the 2 rounds before. So I was like, look, I already had all the luck in the bank. Time to get rid of it. You know what I mean? Time to get rid of the bad luck kind of thing. But it was fun.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, your team does have very few moves that can miss, especially in your core five. And so
Yeah.
that is just I always like to see that in a team. It just means that you have that ability to play very consistently, and you're more likely to get lucky than unlucky. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a brief aside, while we're talking about moves that can miss, I do want to say that Alfredo and I were actually the original builders of the Baxcalibur Salazzle team that Will and Kyle got first and second with at a Limitless tour, I believe. And what's it called? Alfredo was really the mastermind behind that one, so I can't take too much credit. But
I
yeah, after
wait.
at San
So
Diego regional, oh, go
you're
ahead.
saying that Maluka wasn't the original builder of that team?
Um, the Baxcalibur Salazzle one.
I guess he didn't have Salazo on the team, but I figured it was all inspired from what he was doing.
Oh, well, I think we probably so Kyle and I laddered a lot before San Diego. This is off topic, but so we did pair into Maluka a number of times, and we did notice that what's it called? We did notice Salazzle backs had some good synergy, so I sent the idea to Alfredo, and he built a really convincing draft. But this is to say that on that team there was a Mimikyu, and Mimikyu misses a lot of moves. Missed a lot of moves for me at San Diego, so never again. So I was very happy that this team had if I was clicking a move 99% of the time I was getting somewhere with it. The Hydreigon we already discussed a bit earlier, but it's really just teched out for Psyspam. It's honestly it's just the meta call slot. The defensive EVs are left over from when I was trying to optimize it for the Arcanine, Amoonguss, Iron Hands standard stuff. So I think the defense and HP they do something stupid like it makes Arcanine Flare Blitz a 5-hit KO, and you always live a Drain Punch or something like that. Really, really unnecessary, but I didn't know what to EV for in that regard. I've got a lot to learn there, but yeah, against Psyspam, it's just really invaluable, especially against the hard Trick Room Hatterene variant, which was I believe the variant that Alfredo played and that we were expecting to some degree. So, uh, what's it called? Oh yeah, and we did talk about how Tailwind was for mouse ape mostly, so I feel that that's pretty much everything about the team for the most part.
Yeah, that's a really good overview of the Pokemon. Did you feel like you had any like pre-planned out game plans or any matchups where you had to do very specific things?
Yeah, I did. I played two exact six. You know it's the team Sam Pandelis used. I'm not sure if you have access to that team. Like also, I also played another person who used the exact six. I think.
Garganackle, Orimoon,
Round.
Amoonguss,
Yeah.
Iron Bundle, Mimikyu, and Iron
Yeah.
Hands. Yeah.
This team felt quite like very strong for our team because they don't really have an answer to Bundle Tusk lead without like kind of forfeiting a lot of positioning. Because their like best options are what like Garg Roaring Moon or like Roaring Moon Amoonguss or Roaring Moon Mimikyu. And because we're adamant, so like Roaring Moon Mimikyu could be quite awkward if we were jolly, but because we're adamant, Icy Wind Headlong Rush always kills the Mimikyu instead of it being a roll, which was very nice. I realized that mid set and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So yeah, so if they like lead Roaring Moon Garg into Bundle Tusk, like there's so many threats. They have to pick like the exact correct one out of like four or five different possibilities because let's say they Terra Wide Guard Dragon Dance, right? I can just free strike close combat and it's over. They protect protect Dragon Dance, predicting me to Headlong Rush. I can even if I Icy Wind Headlong Rush, it's still really bad because Icy Wind plus free strike is always a kill. If they predict me to predict their Wide Guard and go for a freeze strike close combat, they can protect Salt Cure. I can just Terra Headlong Rush Icy Wind. You know what I mean? Like there are just so many different. Like they have to make the exact correct call for them to still be in a position that I felt was really strong for me. Also, them leading Roaring Moon Amoonguss without taunt just made the matchup very difficult for them because Icy Wind taunt turn one is always correct because they can't really punish that unless they acrobatics pollen puff the bundle, but then even after that, they're still in a funny position because I can just bring in Fluttermane and start going Specs, Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleam stuff, which is quite awkward for them. They don't really have a defensive switch into a Dazzling Gleam, as you can see from the team, once the Amoonguss is out. Um, yeah, so realistically, it just felt like a very strong matchup and very planned out because having Indeedee and Fluttermane in the back, you don't even need Psyspam for this matchup. Made it quite strong. Um, I don't know if there's any other matchups you wanted to go through that are kind of prescribed. I guess the Psyspam matchup, like Mirror Psyspam, was kind of prescribed. Leading Hydreigon Tusk is really strong into most Psyspam. I think the only Psyspam that is difficult that I guess I kind of theoried was Terra Fairy, Terra Blast, Brute Bonnet, but I thought someone would have to be, I don't know, they'd have to have either scattered our team off the ladder and be like, okay, this is the solution to that or something else. I don't know.
Hmm.
But leading kind of Hydreigon Tusk is really strong into most side spam because even if they have like redirection, you can just start spamming Snarl. And like Taunt is really fun into like locking in DDs or Armarouches. Also, the fact that you can just defensively switch into an Indeedee that is taking 5 damage per turn after like one Snarl, and you can like threaten reversing Trick Room and stuff just makes it really awkward for them. And then on top of that, having the Terra Psychic, we can still resist Expanding Force while taking neutral damage from Dazzling Gleam instead of +4,
Hmm.
which was really strong. Yeah, so it felt good. I was kind of sad that I didn't play more side spam, but you know, sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. And then I guess, so did you feel like you were leading in DD Armorug a lot, or is that not that's something that people do on ladder, so something that's very common?
I was actually leading in DD Armor Rouge quite a lot because I don't know, in person I feel like people respect you too much. So I don't know, this is more like a psychological kind of thing. I felt like people like, oh yeah, this guy has protect. I'm gonna respect. I'm not gonna like snarl or play like defensively. I'm just gonna double target the Indeedee. And like I think like four games of my Swiss, I just clicked Helping Hand Expanding Force and got a double KO because they tried to get fancy and double targeted my Ndidi. So I let Ndidi Armor Rouge a lot, maybe because I'm like like chronic like Pokemon VGC gambler, and I just wanted to go like full on. Let's just. I don't want to think about it. Let's just try win game three off a turn one Helping Hand Expanding Force, and it worked out most of the time, which was pretty funny. But yeah, it kind of felt like Psyspam. I don't like calling this team Psyspam because realistically we only have one psychic move, which is the best psychic move in the game though. I kind of feel more it's like psychic offense. I don't know if that's like a thing because I was leading more the offensive mode and Indeedee Armor Rouge kind of felt like a respect demander, kind of like Dondozo Tatsugiri was in Series 1 and also probably now, where they're like, oh, I can't really lead into countering XYZ non-Psy spam lead because I just lose to Psy spam turn one, which I really liked about the team, which kind of gave me, I guess, the sort of like the initiative in team preview, which is, I think people underestimate how important team preview is because if you can get the lead call correct, then you have like the initiative for the rest of the game. You're the one who's like demanding the pressure rather than trying to play defensive. Uh, but yeah, I think Ndidi Armor Rouge is quite strong. I just think leading it isn't very good in tournament format unless you are just like calling out your opponent turn one. And it does work a lot of the time because they kind of are conditioned in a three game set where they're like, oh, okay, they haven't led Ndidi Armor Rouge twice, maybe they're just not going to lead it, and then you lead it, and then that's it, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, it's so easy to say that, hey, I have this one Pokemon as my DD Armor matchup, and then you're forced to lead it into them, and that's very punishable. I mean, you talked about like how you have a Hydreigon, and if someone like, hey, if your opponent has a Hydreigon, and you're like, oh, this is their only matchup, it's really easy for you to do things like lead any of your other Pokemon that threaten it. Um, and so I guess similarly, but it's at the same time like you have to force them to respect it. And so I like that approach of like, hey, I'm probably going to lead this like once per set and force them to respect the option. But you also just have so much counterplay, like you talked about with the fairy moves and the fighting moves and all that stuff, to all the side spam counterplay that you can still kind of force it through later in the game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's a really good overview of how to play the team. And then I guess let's talk about your tournament run. So you went 7-2 in day one, and then made it all the way to top 8 in day two. Talk me through how the tournament went for you.
Um, I'd say my day one was quite rough. Like on average, I felt like I got a lot worse luck than good luck. I think probably the only round I got good luck on day one was round two and round six, where I got like a crucial freeze or a crucial crit, but I still lost the game because I choked the end game, kind of thing, which was funny. But pretty much everything else was kind of, I guess, um, how do I say it? Like honest, like an honest win kind of thing. All the other games, either I was getting unlucky or I just called out my opponent or my opponent called me out. My round five loss was a bad matchup and my opponent just called me out. They just played way better than me because it was like turn one was a 50-50 because they were using, I think, like a really bad matchup for the team is like Dondozo with defensive Terra King Gambit that resists Armor Cannon, which is quite bad because if they lead like Dondozo King Gambit, then turn one is an instant 50-50 if you're leading Psyspam. You either Helping Hand Expanding Force predicting like the defensive Terra, so you can one shot the Dozo and like chip the King Gambit immensely, or you Armor Cannon Trick Room trying to predict like a, you know what I mean, like a kind of thing and kill the King Gambit on turn one. But they called me out twice, both game one and two, so I lost. Uh, Probably my game against Aurelian was quite close. Game one was just convincing win. Um, but game two, they, I guess, it was like a bunch of 50-50s. They played really well, but it came down to a heat wave burn and seeing if I would land hydro pumps. I didn't miss the first hydro pump, but then they got a heat wave burn on my bundle, which was kind of sad. And then game three, they just called me out on a turn that was either helping hand expanding force or like switch out cycle and an expanding force kind of thing, and they called it correct, and their Volcarona lived on 5 HP, which then got them a KO on my Iron Bundle on the Switch, which was really sad, but it's all good. But pretty much all the other wins were kind of honest. I played, I think my round 8 opponent. I would genuinely thought I was gonna lose, but then Hydreigon came in clutch with Terra Psychic, so I could live a Drain Punch, and then they were running the wait. I have their 6 here. Sorry, they were running Arcanine Bundle, Roaring Moon, Amoonguss, Goldengo, Iron Hands, and I was able to, I guess, get in a position where it was like Hydreigon last turn of Tailwind against their Roaring Moon in Tailwind. Yeah, like that had just set Tailwind with my Armarouge on the side, and I think they thought that their Roaring Moon outsped my Hydreigon. And guess what? Because you run bulky Roaring Moon, my Hydreigon was kind of fast. Well, like even though it's bulky, it's like fast, and it just one-shot it with Draco Meteor, and I had the biggest pop-off ever. It was very funny, at least, because I had already given up, which was good. Probably, I'd say like the best set I played in terms of like skill kind of thing that I felt that I played the best was against Yuki in round 11. I don't know if you have Yuki's team on here. Yeah, awesome.
Victor,
it was very difficult. Yeah, I didn't know what Mortal Spin did initially. So I went in, I'm like, what is this move? I thought it was like a single target move, so I tried to go like, okay, I'm just gonna like Helping Hand Expanding Force game 1, and they just protected Mortal Spin, and I was like, okay, I think this is the poison move, it's just gonna do it to 1. But then I saw both my mons were poisoned, and I was like, nah, this is it. I can't win this game. And then game 2, I just called them out flat out, because there's always what's it called? When I don't know if you've heard this rule, Artie, where people like, if you play the Indeedee Armarouge player, you always target the Armarouge kind of thing. I don't know if you've heard that.
I have not.
But like in circles that I've been, it's like if you are playing against Indeedee Armarouge, always attack the Armarouge. So I kind of thought of that. So I just went Protect Trick Room, and they hard switched their Dondozo. I mean the Glamora into Tatsugiri, went for a Wave Crash onto my Armarouge. I was like, oh, okay, this is it, because now I'm in Trick Room and I've got Terra Grass. You know what I mean? Terra Grass. Armarouge against a Dondozo in Trick Room that Helping Hand Expanding Force is doing 50% every time. So it wasn't too hard. And then game 3, it was a lot of posturing and stuff. And then I got into a good position. But then he got a double protect with his Talonflame. I was like, oh no, this is really bad. And the fact that he had like Mortal Spin and spikes and everything, and I was like, oh, this is not good. But then I got onto a turn where I feel like this guy's going to respect me, so he thinks I'm going to protect my 50% Tusk, and he's just going to Earth Power my Armarouge. And I just attacked with the Tusk and just killed the Glamora, and that was like the turning point of the tournament in day 2, where I'm like, I'm not leaving here unless I get top 8 kind of thing. Yeah, but I kind of feel bad for round 12 and 13, because in round 12 I threw game 3 and then I got bailed. Kind of sad. It was probably my least graceful game that I've seen on stream. And then round 13, I just got super lucky against Eric Rios. But, you know, sometimes that's what happens. Like, game 1 against Eric, he led, I think it was Tyranitar Amoonguss, if I recall correctly. And he just called me out every turn. He protected his Amoonguss, went for Rock Slide. I'm like, oh no, this is done. So I was like, look, game 1, he's already terrored his Tyranitar. You know what? Screw this. I'm just going to go switch in my Armarouge. I'm going to Helping Hand Expanding Force. It's missing the Armarouge. And it missed. So I got a double KO on a turn that I should have just lost, which was kind of nice. And then game 2, it wasn't really over. Like, it was still like a game. Um, because I called out his Protect on his Amoonguss and I freeze dry close combated the Tyranitar and got the KO, which was very good for my team because now the back Psyspam is very strong. Um, but it would have been awkward because he has like a Scarf Grape Tusk in the back and everything, and then I have to get in a position where I can set up Trick Room while killing Amoonguss at the same time. Um, but I he missed an Icy Wind when that was the only move he targeted my Great Tusk on like 20%, and I just got a free close combat, and it was just done, which was very interesting. I felt really bad afterwards, but I've gotten that unlucky as well at other events when I was a senior when I played before. So sometimes the ball, I guess, the dice rolls in your favor, which I was very fortunate about. Um, yeah, but realistically, I just felt the team against most teams that I played in the tournament, I didn't feel like there was one point where I was like, oh, this is unwinnable kind of thing. Even against Tyranitar, which is probably our worst matchup, um, I always felt I had an out. But a lot of the time in matchups, you have to be willing to like, I don't know if this is like the correct analogy, like you're playing roulette, where you're like, I'm gonna put $5,000 on red, let's go on turn one kind of thing. Um, so realistically, if I were to recommend this team to anyone, only if you like playing super aggressive and like if you are willing to bank your whole game plan on turn one, game one, where you have to make the correct call kind of thing.
Right.
But it is quite a good team. It functions very well, and I just like it's like super hyper aggressiveness, but like multiple modes of aggression.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, the way I always saw it is if I can't if my matchup is bad, I'd rather just make it volatile a lot of times. If I can't like consistently outplay my opponent, I would rather just like get get their turns right, like get one turn right. And so knowing that about your team is really important and saying, okay, I'm not going to try to play a fair game against this sort of team, against like Tyranitar. I'm going to just make the read, and it kind of is a coin flip turn one is like a very valid way of approaching. Ideally, you're not doing that every matchup, right? You need to win more than 30% of your games. But like for one matchup, if you can win it half the time and then everything else you can beat consistently, which you did, then that's like a pretty reasonable approach. I know that's been my approach to specific teams in the past as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's it's very good because if you what's it called can close down like bad matchups to a coin flip, that is probably the best. Even though most of the time you want to be winning a majority of games, but it's better to have a coin flip than like an auto loss kind of thing or basically unwinnable matchup,
Yeah.
which is kind of a design philosophy that I like a lot about certain teams. Yeah.
And I think just the way that Pokemon works, at least double battles work, is that usually, if you think about it hard enough, you can turn your bad matchups into very volatile matchups. That's not ideal, but that is something that you have to sometimes do. Um,
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
and so I guess uh, you talked about how recommending this team to people. So for people looking to use this team, maybe at Perth regionals or Vancouver regionals or Utrecht, uh, what changes would you recommend people make, if any?
Um, I'll give my opinion, but then I'll let Kareem because Kareem's probably like the best one to talk about this kind of move sets. Um, One thing I would change 100% is get rid of Mystical Fire on Fluttermane. I feel like Thunderbolt, Trick, or Power Gem has a better sort of role. I think Power Gem could be interesting into Iron Moth, but I'm not sure what the calc is for that. I don't know if Icy Wind plus Power Gem KOs because I know Iron Moth has quite high special defense. Um, Also, I feel like Taunt is really good on Tusk, but that was kind of like a personal thing for me. I just felt like I used it a lot, like against Yuki as well. Game 3, turn 1, I just called him out turn 1 that he would spike his shield, try sub with his Dondozo and get cute in front of my Tusk. And I just taunted it, and it was like, oh, now he doesn't really have anything, you know what I mean? Now he's in a really awkward position where he's either forced to switch out his Dondozo and I can just double target that slot, or he sacks his Dondozo and I double target that slot. And like, Dondozo was a very big win con for his team. Um, yeah, so realistically, it's more like, I guess, personal things. You can change the Terra type of bundle, but I feel like Terra Ghost right now is the best option, full stop. I feel like unless you have like a really bad matchup into Amoonguss or Dondozo where you want to start, hitting it harder. But on this team, Fluttermane is doing 40% with Moonblast, which is kind of crazy anyway, because its specs and its special attack is absolutely insane. Also, full stop, like you can get rid of the Hydreigon and put whatever you want on it, whatever you think your local or whatever tournament scene you're going to is going to have. That sixth slot is like, I don't know if this is kind of weird. Like, like Yokai Watch is kind of an obscure reference. Yokai Watch 3, there's like this custom Jibanyan that you can make where you can make like pick your own like yokai where you can make like a custom kind of character. That's kind of what the sixth slot is. You can have Hydreigon, you can have even Stonejourner, you can have, I don't know,
Shout out
Amoonguss,
Wacko.
Shout out Whacker, yeah,
Yo, I
Stonejourner.
know, again, we're recording this at Knoxville. Going into round 9, there were 2 Sojourners in contention, and they played each other in round 8 at X1.
No, that's so
terrible.
sad.
That's sad. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, realistically, the sixth slot can be anything. You can even put a Magikarp if you want on there, like just for fun.
that's
Shout out
what you
Nicholas
do at
Bingham.
Australian regionals.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out
That's
Nicholas Bingham.
true.
Yeah. Realistically,
Um,
the sixth slot is whatever you want. But I'll hand over to Kareem if there are any other changes that he would make, like sets wise and stuff, because I'm not very good at that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything Alfredo said. Hydreigon isn't the perfect sixth slot by any means, but for what we wanted to accomplish and for how effective it proved in practice, it was fine. But honestly, like a vast majority of your games are really just down to your core five of the Flutter, Psyspam Duo, Great Tusk, and Bundle. Uh, for those five, I feel like the items are pretty set. I can't really imagine playing with any other ones, but honestly, the team can be edited to the comfort of whoever's using it. That's another thing I like about this archetype is how it just felt really flexible. You have quite a few tech slots on the Fluttermane and the Great Tusk, uh, and if you want to optimize those for a specific matchup to accommodate your local metagame or something of the sort, then yeah, by all means go for it. But this is really just to say that, like, yeah, again, nothing is extremely set in stone. This is what worked for Alfredo and I, but it's really like a choose your own adventure kind of thing.
And it's cool to see a team that a core that was so successful with that much flexibility. And so it's definitely looking forward to see how people continue to innovate on this. Because I know size spam is definitely, or whatever you want to call it. Sorry, I know you said you don't prefer that terminology, but this DD armored core is how people are going to develop that in the future. But yeah, I guess so. The one match that I wanted to talk about that we didn't get to talk about is your top 8 set. So you made the top cut, and then you played Raghav, I believe. How did your set against Raghav go? You're muted.
Alfredo, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I just coughed, so I'm muted. Sorry about that. I played like really bad that set. Sadly, he kind of called me out both game one and game two on the leads. And yeah, it like this matchup doesn't seem unwinnable. Like it is very doable. It's just really, I just didn't know the Arcanine speed, and just realizing that the Arcanine was slower than my Great Tusks while I was in Trick Room, I was like, oh no, like kind of thing. I just, if like this matchup is a lot more doable if I have all the information presented to me. If I know that the Arcanine is slower and the Goldengo also was slower than my Great Tusks, which is like, I guess from what I saw from ladder, most Goldengo are like 252 speed, timid, and then they run like defensive if they're running with mouse hold, with nasty plot. But I don't know if that's like a my building server with the goblins where everyone runs it like that. So then I was kind of skewed. But yeah, Raghav kind of just called me out like game one. and then I kind of got lucky, and then it got to a 50-50. And on top of that, Raghav called out my 50-50 on top of that, and then game two had happened. It was a 50-50. He called me out turn one, um, and it was a. Then I got lucky. Then it was a 50-50, and then he called out my 50-50 again. So it was like a double down twice. So it was just really funny. It wasn't like I felt like I could have played better, but sometimes it kind of just happens like that.
Mhm.
Also, the fact that I know game one, the Arcanine lived on 1 HP from a Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam at like 7% or something like that. So if the Arcanine died, it would have been over. I would have won game one, but on top of that, I had to get lucky to get in that position in the first place. So, I can't really complain. I was very happy with my performance overall. Yeah, so I didn't really have anyone to blame but myself in that set. I wish I could have played better, but that's in the past. And now onward and upward to Sydney Regionals and EUIC. That's what I think.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what you come up with for those events. But obviously, top eight at the Oceania International Championships is a really, really impressive performance, especially for your first event back playing in a long time. Just a really incredible run. So congratulations once again. And I guess, did you have any final words or shout outs that you wanted to give?
Um, well, I'll let Kareem go first because I got like everyone,
Okay.
everyone is under the
Uh,
sun.
First of all, shout outs Alfredo for just using the team and proving that it's viable and good because I brought something very similar to Orlando, and uh, sometimes that happens, right? In building duos where one person just has it and the other doesn't for a specific event. So I'm glad Alfredo could use the team and do well with it because I frankly, and I did tell him this, I had lost all hope in the six before OCIC. And Alfredo was just like, "This is what I've practiced with. I'm gonna go for it." And he's an amazing player. So shout out to Alfredo. Um, who else? Shout outs to Rob. Shout outs to Kyle for helping test this team a lot. I played against them many many times. And shout outs Ice Spice. Uh, that's honestly that's pretty much it. You can go ahead, Alfredo.
Um, First, I just wanted to thank my parents first this time, not like the stream where I nearly forgot. Thanks to my parents for, helping me, all through back when I started playing in 2014 as a little junior to now. Yeah, it's been an awesome journey. Shout outs to Kareem initially, Kareem initially made this team and he's the only reason I was able to go like 11-3 over the 2 day Swiss. Also, I just wanted to thank the people who were at the event who I hung out predominantly with, like Nick Khan, the GOAT. I don't know if you'll watch this video because I don't know if Nick Khan really looks at this kind of social stuff. Also, I wanted to thank James Beck, James Evans, Zachary Thornburg, Joe. Yeah, just pretty much anyone who hung out with me the weekend. Also, Hamish. Hamish is my rock, my everything. Thank you very much, Hamish D. I love you. Wow. Also, shout out to Iron Bundle God willing for not missing crucial moves.
I'm also adding a shout out to my parents. I love those guys. Now I'm the one that forgot it. Now
Yeah.
I look silly.
Okay. Shout outs to my parents too. Love them too. So yeah, well, I guess those are all the questions that I had. I definitely recommend that you try this team out. It is probably the best Psyspam version that we have right now. And of course, there is a rental on screen, and the paste will be in the description down below, along with links to both of these fine gentlemen's Twitters. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Congratulations once again, and until next time, I will see you all later.